Another 15 minutes with, and our friend Chip Giannettino is with us at KCPS, 1150 AM, the voice of the people, along with Des Moines County Cemeteries, participate in Wreaths Across America. That's what Chip is here to talk about. And owner-operator of KCPS too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, for how many years, Chip?
30, possibly 8.
Yeah.
7, 8, I can't recall exactly. It's been a long time.
Studios are in West Burlington.
Yes.
Yeah.
Started downtown on Main Street. There's still a mural on the building there in the 400 block of Main Street. And then we moved up to Jefferson Street and then ultimately out to West Burlington. Did about 10 years in each place. And the station before me was around since 1965, so it's got a good history.
Yeah, and how many years in the radio game?
40.
40, yeah. I'm coming up on 30, so that's too far behind you. I don't think I'm going to catch you.
You possibly don't show it as badly as I do.
No, you look great.
Yeah,
Thank you. You do.
Imagine my surprise when you got the name right also. That's a first.
Oh, I had to practice, believe me. Yes, yeah. Owner-operator of KCPS, Chip Giannettino, and local organizer of Wreaths Across America. First of all, in 2007, Wreaths Across America was formed as a nonprofit. I love the story of how this started. We'll get into that. But the wreaths that are given out are live balsam wreaths.
Correct.
Right, Chip? There's a ceremony at Aspen Grove Cemetary on December 14th. Not the only cemetery in the area that will get wreaths. And 4,225 locations nationwide participate.
Well, that number just changed to 4,700.
That's wonderful.
Yes. Yeah, all 50 states.
That's so great. And over 3.2 million wreaths will be laid upon graves of our greatest American heroes. I say that a lot when talking about veterans, Chip, because I think it's true. Where is your touch with the military in your life that you decided to get into this some years back?
Well, I have 2 sons in, but I was into it before that. So to back up just one step, the actual origination of the concept was 1992.
Yeah.
So there's this family in Maine that does wreaths for a living. So you've driven around here and seen 1,000 acres of corn. Well, 1,000 acres of pine trees to make wreaths from. So they family business, and in 1992 they had 1 truckload of wreaths left over. So they supply all the mail order catalogs and these kinds of retail places. And this family had this truckload of wreaths, about 5,000 wreaths left over in 1992, and they were trying to figure out a family service project that they could do for their family at Christmas time with these wreaths. And so it dawned on them they could take them to Arlington National Cemetery in Washington.
Yeah. Because of an experience one of the family members had as a 12-year-old.
Correct.
Right, Chip?
Yeah. Good research.
Yeah.
So they got permission and they laid 5,000 wreaths in year 1, 1992. And then they were so moved and touched by the whole thing that they decided to do this as a family project each year. And they planned on having a certain number of wreaths left over, and they grew that number. And they grew volunteers along with them, so it became more than just their family. And then as the word got out about this and how beautiful it was, and what a touching event that it was, other cemeteries asked if they could join in. How do we do this, and how do we sign up? And long story short, you're right that later on, years later, they started the nonprofit foundation with the goal to put a live balsam wreath on every veteran's grave, no matter where that veteran was in the world. So, as an example, they do the entire veterans cemetery at Normandy, where there's a large American cemetery there from D-Day days.
Yeah.
So it's grown into this thing, all 50 states. Here we are all these years later. And I was interviewing, like you are now, a woman from Danville, Tiffany Hupman, who wanted to start a chapter of this for the cemetery in Danville, the Jaeger Cemetery. And she was raising money to buy the wreaths. They have about 100 veterans there in round numbers in that cemetery. And so we had her on the radio, and after the interview, I thought to myself, well, sure, I'm certain we have this at Aspen Grove. I mean, Aspen Grove is an incredibly historic cemetery. It predates the state of Iowa by 3 years.
And the number of veterans buried there.
Yeah, 3,200
Yeah.
in round numbers. And it's an enormous cemetery, 134 acres. There's 6 miles of roads back there, 44,000 graves. And it's not just a veteran cemetery. It's a cemetery for everybody. So the veterans, there are 3 veterans locations in there, but most veterans are buried in their family plots.
Yes.
So it's a matter of finding them all and counting them all at a cemetery that predates the computer by 100 years, and there weren't great records kept. And so it was this enormous undertaking that we had no idea when we started. But the board of directors at Aspen Grove, and particularly Mike Bloomer, the administrator, have been tremendous partners. I get a lot of this press work, but they are the great unsung heroes in the background, doing all this heavy lifting of identifying the veterans, and then we put locator flags on in the weeks ahead of the event that you mentioned, so that the volunteers can find them. Some of these are so old. In fact, there's a Revolutionary War veteran at Aspen Grove, John Morgan. There are veterans from every war that's ever been fought or we've ever engaged in the United States of America at Aspen Grove, up to the current.
Was some of this figured out as you were trying to figure out?
Oh, yeah. I knew none of this a year ago.
Sure, yeah.
But I know a lot about it now. But so that's the sort of the larger picture. So our goal began to be, let's just target Aspen Grove because it's the biggest and most historic in the county. All the other cemeteries together, veterans added up, don't add up to what's at Aspen Grove. So as the first year thing,
But you cover those too.
We covered all of Aspen Grove last year. That was our goal.
Yeah.
And that was an enormous undertaking, but this community is just tremendous.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know from working over here now, they're just tremendous. So we did that. So the expansion for year 2, which is what this is, year 2 was going to be, we're going to start to add the other cemeteries in as we can.
Can I mention those?
All over the county. Yes, please do.
Yeah, St. Mary's Cemetery in Dodgeville, Old Stone Cemetery.
Also in Dodgeville, yeah.
Okay, North 6th Street Cemetery.
Very historic cemetery right up the street here.
Right over here? Okay, yeah.
But has between 50 and 100, back to the Civil War, veterans, and lots of them. But it's a little-known cemetery on North Hill.
Sacred Heart, and you said the Jaeger Cemetery?
Right.
And then, of course, Aspen Grove, where the ceremony takes place on December 14th.
And St. Mary's in West Burlington. There's another St. Mary's.
And St. Mary's in West Burlington,
So,
yes.
so Sacred Heart is in Crapo Park.
Okay, yeah.
And there's 300-plus veterans there in that cemetery as well. So our expansion to all 7 of these cemeteries in the county, and I believe there's going to actually be 8 because it seems someone is doing another one. We haven't got that firmed up yet, but
Chip, I've read, and from what you're telling me, that volunteers are vital. Do you have enough for this year, or do good people that are listening right now?
Yeah. Yes, we need you. We had 514 volunteers last year at Aspen Grove.
Wonderful.
On a 36-degree rainy day, December 16th last year, December 14th this year, but the weather will undoubtedly be better. So we just never sure about the volunteers, but again, this community turned out, and we for 3,200 wreaths, it worked out to be just the right number, 500 volunteers. We had everybody you could imagine we had 100 K through 12 kids, because I have gone around and spoken.
Oh, wow, yeah, schools.
At schools and
Yeah.
the high schools and Cub Scout troops, and try to get the kids out too. So that worked out to be a great number, but we're going to have an event. So on that day, Wreaths Across America Day that you mentioned, December 14th this year, Saturday, 11 o'clock. Coast to coast, this happens at the same time,
Yeah.
all at once. So there's a real focus on remembering, honoring, and teaching. That's the overall mission.
And a respect to start it at the same time so it happens.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's this enormous thing in all 50 states. So we had to have people put on events at all these 7 cemeteries now. Of course, Jaeger already has their event going. We have our event going, and now the other cemeteries, the other 5, will do similar events at their cemeteries too. Now, some of these are pretty small, like St. Mary's out there next to Deary Brothers. It's a very small cemetery, but it has 36 or so veterans in there. So there will be a ceremony there, just like there's a ceremony at Aspen Grove, just like there's one at Arlington National Cemetery. That one last year had 38,000 volunteers. We need volunteers always, and you can volunteer by going to the Wreaths Across America website and putting in our location. So you probably can remember Aspen Grove Cemetery. That will bring it up. But we have a chapter assigned to us with the initials IA for Iowa, and then 0064.
Search that, and when you go to wreathsacrossamerica.org,
yep,
you want to search Iowa.
You just put a slash and put that number.
Yep.
wreathsacrossamerica.org/IA0064.
And wreathsacrossamerica.org is also the place where you can make an online donation.
Correct.
Yep, and you can do that by just scanning the QR code there. You mentioned Arlington. Have you been to Arlington?
Yes, I have, yeah.
If there's a place where you can get a perspective and feel the the reverence, I guess, for what the price people paid, it's stand there and just do a full 360 and look around at Arlington. It's pretty...
there are 250,000 in round numbers veterans laid to rest there.
Yeah.
It is at once terrible and impressive all at the same time.
Yeah.
These are real people that gave real sacrifice. And this is our goal, to have a certain number of kids always at these events. If you're fortunate enough, for instance, to be my age, I was too young for Vietnam at the time, thankfully.
Yeah.
I was too old by the time some of these more recent ones came along. I was in a place that, just as luck would have it, where that didn't impact my life directly. But most people in this country can't say that. And so I want people of my generation and going forward to really understand the sacrifices that were made, and there's no better way to do that than to volunteer at this event, because it's a very tangible and solemn thing that we do.
Do you just reach out? Do you prefer people to reach out to these particular cemeteries to say, "Hey, do you need help on this day?" How do you volunteer?
Yeah,
Chip?
so if you'll go to our particular part of that website, there's a pull-down menu where you can volunteer or contribute to any of them. So, but on that day, we promise it'll be a positive, unifying, uplifting event, and something you won't ever forget. And
everybody's welcome on December 14th, correct?
Absolutely. It's helpful if you fill out a volunteer form on the website, but it is by no means critical. We found out last year maybe half the people registered, and the other half, we did shows like this and other interviews in our speeches around the community. A lot of people just showed up on that day, and we put them to work. And we train everyone as part of the ceremony. We train them how to do it. There's a way that we do this, and it's all very unified across the country, so that there's a decorum involved and a reverence for the work that we're doing.
You said 36 degrees last year, and you were probably pretty busy during the event. What do you remember from that event? How did you feel?
I had such gratitude on that morning when it started with a trickle of people, maybe an hour ahead, and I was doing the numbers on how this was going to work with the 50 or 100 people that I saw showing up. But as we got closer to the 11 o'clock start, there was a traffic jam on Sunnyside, backed up pretty good.
That's wonderful.
And I just was so grateful that everybody did show up in that weather, including like the Leo clubs from the high school, which, I can remember back to those days, being a teenager and waking up on a 36-degree rainy day and saying, "No, I don't think so." But they showed up.
Yeah.
They did great work for us.
They showed up, and that's the thing you can think about too. These veterans showed up for us.
Right.
So if you wake up on that morning, it's 28 degrees. Show up. They went through hell.
That thought went through my head on that day.
I bet it did. Yeah.
My first reaction was, "Oh, it had to rain, didn't it?" And then followed quickly by, how dare you? You know, this is absolutely nothing by contrast and in the way of a sacrifice. So it puts everything in perspective, and that's what you're hoping the event does. So we honored a lot of veterans whose family lines are gone.
Yeah.
You know, that had a history in this town, but just died off over the generations.
There might not have been anybody there to even represent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we had total strangers honoring veterans that couldn't even pronounce their names, perhaps, or whatever. And some of these veterans, well, for instance, there's a Civil War section of Aspen Grove Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
That 99 graves. And it's beautiful. It was all restored by Mike Bloomer and his son Jace about maybe 10 years ago. And when you look at those names there, I've lived here almost 40 years. You know the names of this community. The names, you know, there's names that you know and families that have generations here.
Yeah.
In business or in other parts of the community. And you see all these names from Civil War days, and you don't recognize any piece of that because there's none of it left.
Yeah.
And so when you get to say their names out loud, which we do with every wreath we put down, so the process is we carry a single wreath to a single grave, a person or two, depends. And they find the locator flag that we have there so they know they're in the right place. And they place the wreath and take a step back and say that veteran's name out loud into the world.
Yeah.
And whatever you want to say, either out loud or privately, to thank them for their service or whatever, it's up to you, something meaningful. You take a step back and do that, and then your second step back, you're just taking in the sight of what it was that you did. And each wreath has a little tag on the back with a number, and it has a thank you from Wreaths Across America, and you take that as a keepsake when you leave. You put that in your pocket or whatever, and you have that to take away with you. It's got a little American flag on there, and it says some meaningful words, and you get to keep that as your keepsake, and then you return the flag back to the section leader, and you do another one if you care to or whatever. Obviously, we had to do multiple with that many.
Yeah.
It's quite something to see.
Is there a time limit? It starts at 11 o'clock on December 14th at Aspen Grove Cemetery. What time does it usually wrap up? It just kind of depends, right?
Yeah, it takes a couple of hours, and we make it clear you don't have to stay the whole time.
Yeah.
Almost everybody did, but that's a pretty busy time of the year for a lot of people. It's a Saturday.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of a Saturday, for that matter. But most people, once they got there, didn't want to leave. But you can leave. You can lay a single wreath if you want. Maybe you have a loved one there that you want to make sure that you want to lay that wreath on, and you can do that and then leave. But the bulk of people stay until the job's done, and then Bloomer and I go around and make sure every last locator flag has been replaced with a wreath, so that everyone is done. And then, in fact, the week after, we had to lay some wreaths because people came out that weren't out that day, that had a particularly old or gravestone that doesn't mention anything about the military. There was nothing maybe in the obituary, and there was nothing in the paperwork at the cemetery that said that this was a veteran. There's no requirement that, obviously, that veterans identify themselves.
Yeah.
And in fact, you mentioned the World War II generation. Many of these men and women went and did their service, came back to town, never spoke of it again, didn't want it on their gravestone. They were, it's not that they weren't proud of the service that they rendered, it's that they didn't want to make a big stink about it. That's that generation.
Yeah.
That's why people often refer to them as the greatest generation. They just wanted to do it, and come back and live their life.
I don't need attention on me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Long before social media. Look at me. Look at me. So this was a special kind of person, and we found I don't know, maybe a dozen of those after the fact when people came and said, my Uncle Charlie was in World War II and he doesn't have a wreath on his grave. And we went out, we followed up the entire week and did every last one where people came in and said that. So now we got them in the database for this year.
Do you have enough wreaths to cover the cemeteries this year?
That's the trick. Yeah. So wreaths cost $17 delivered.
Yeah.
And if you buy two, that's $34. I'll do the math. We get a third one as a bonus.
Yeah.
So 3 wreaths are $34. That's $11.33 each delivered. And they all still come from the original wreath farm where the very first wreaths came in 1992.
Okay.
And at every step of the way, there are volunteers. So we have a video that you can see of last year's event. It's only 3 minutes long. It was done by the Southeastern Community College video production class as a class project.
Can I find it at KCPS?
You can find it at youtube.com, and then in the search box you write Wreaths Across America, KCPS, and it'll come right up as the only thing there. We have one video associated with the radio station, and that's it.
Well, check it out and get a glimpse of what the event's going to be like. Is there an urgent need for? Do you really need people to go and purchase wreaths? And
yes, we have had tremendous support financially.
Yeah.
On this every place we go, but the fact of the matter is, we're going to probably get to 4,000 wreaths this year between all these cemeteries, the original 3,200 for Aspen Grove, and then the other cemeteries are still locating all the veterans, so we don't really have a firm number, but we know it's going to be somewhere between 500 and 1,000 to cover these other cemeteries. So my point about the video is in the very beginning you see the tractor-trailer truck coming down Sunnyside, and then you see the woman driver wave to us. So this is a woman from Des Moines whose husband was a veteran. She's a truck driver. And the entire national operation, over 400 trucking companies donate the equipment, the tractors and trailers.
Time, the gas. Yeah.
The gas is donated. The drivers donate their time. She drove from Des Moines to Maine, waited overnight. They loaded the entire truck with wreaths for Aspen Grove.
Came back.
And drove back the next day in one shot and delivered them. And they were so fresh, these wreaths stayed out until spring cleanup in March at Aspen Grove. It was, if you know about fresh greens, and people get wreaths for their doors at home or what have you.
Sure.
They don't last till the spring.
No.
But these did, and it was astonishing. But there are so many good people involved at every level. The secondary secret reason to have kids involved in this too is because we're a certain age, and our generation starts things and we need them to keep going. So the children that we speak to today will carry this forth into the future.
Chip, if I can't make a donation online, if I'm one of those people that doesn't give money online, can I call KCPS and say, hey, I want to purchase 10 wreaths and help out?
We can take a donation of any amount, provided the check is made out to Wreaths Across America.
Okay.
And the number IA0064 is what assigns it to this town.
That's right. And if you're mailing in a check, you can do that, payable to Wreaths Across America /IA0064. If you missed that, just go back in the video and see. KCPS Radio, P.O. Box 100, West Burlington, Iowa 52655.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll go anywhere to pick up checks for wreaths. I'll go speak to any group. Obviously, the radio station is a point of contact. That's fine. But you'll start to see in every grocery store and every gas station convenience store anywhere in this area, Pepsi will have at their displays, like they did last year, the QR code that is on the flyer. You'll see Pepsi on our behalf for the entire county putting this in every store, every place you can buy a Pepsi, between now and the end of November, beginning of December. So hopefully you will see this everywhere you go, and our thanks to Burlington Pepsi for doing that. They were a big supporter last year, just getting the word out and financially, and we thank them as well.
What a beautiful salute to all these veterans. Help out in any way you can. Wreaths Across America is December 14th. Chip, thanks for taking time and being with us for well over 15 minutes with you. We appreciate it.
Well, there's no clock in this room.
That's right. Well, I usually have one going today, but I don't right now, so I don't mind going over, especially for this cause for our greatest American heroes. Chip, thanks for what you do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time.